Good morning. This is X-Pulse AI Morning Mix. It's Saturday, May 9th, 2026. Today, a massive Anthropic funding rumor, a sobering real-world LLM misuse case tied to critical infrastructure, and Washington turns model testing into a pre-release ritual. I've got Orion with me. Ready?
Ready, let's jump in.
PMTS.com reported on May 8th that Anthropic is weighing a funding round as large as $50 billion at a valuation near $900 billion. Orion, what's the signal here?
If accurate, it's a compute and distribution land grab. $50 billion would bankroll huge capacity expansion, chips, data centers, long-term power, and a deeper push into enterprise. It also resets the private market scoreboard for frontier labs in a way that pressures everyone else to keep up.
Does a number that big change behavior in the market beyond headlines?
Yes, it changes who can pre-buy scarce infrastructure and who can subsidize pricing to win strategic accounts. It also shifts negotiating leverage with cloud partners and hardware suppliers. In practical terms, capital becomes a product feature because it buys reliability, latency, and guaranteed capacity.
Any reality check listeners should keep in mind?
It's still unnamed sources and considering. Terms can move, or it may never happen. But even the discussion tells you demand forecasts are enormous, and that investors believe the winners will look less like software startups and more like utilities with models attached. Also, $900 billion is not subtle.
InfoSecurity magazine reported on May 7th that attackers used commercial models, Anthropic's Claude as a primary technical executor, and OpenAI's GPT models in analytical roles, to plan and conduct an intrusion at a water and drainage facility. What do we know?
Investigators say the actors used prompt and response workflows for intrusion planning and for developing and deploying malicious tooling against operational technology. They linked the activity to illicit accounts. The scary part isn't AI wrote malware as a stunt. It's AI acting like an always-on junior operator across steps.
So is this new capability or just new documentation?
Mostly new documentation. Many of these tasks are already doable by skilled humans. The change is efficiency, faster research, fewer dead ends, and more consistent execution. For defenders, it means the volume and polish of attacks can rise, even if the underlying techniques aren't novel.
What should model providers do when it's commercial accounts, not lab demos?
Tighter abuse monitoring, faster off-ramps for suspicious activity, and better high-risk domain guardrails, especially around critical infrastructure. But it's a balancing act. The same operational details can be legitimate for security testing. Still, water systems are not the place for a beta experiment.
Euronews reported on May 8th that Google, Microsoft, and xAI agreed to have the U.S. Department of Commerce's new Center for AI Standards and Innovation, CAISI, evaluate models for cyber, bio, and chemical weapons-related risks before public release. What's different here?
This is closer to a coordinated pre-flight check culture. It's not just voluntary safety claims. There's a government-run evaluation process focused on the most catastrophic misuse categories. The big shift is normalization. Pre-release testing becomes part of the launch checklist, like security review in software, only higher stakes.
Is this a meaningful constraint or mostly theater?
It can be meaningful if the tests are rigorous, repeated, and tied to concrete mitigations. The risk is box checking. But even imperfect testing creates shared baselines and incentives for labs to instrument models for auditing. Also, it sets an expectation that moving fast includes proving you're not shipping a disaster.
And xAI being in that trio, any read on that?
It signals the program is aiming to cover major consumer-facing frontier models, not just the usual incumbents. If you're a lab outside the tent, customers may start asking, "Where's your CAISI-style report?" Compliance becomes a sales asset.
Reuters reported on May 7th that Nvidia will invest up to $2.1 billion in IREN, tied to deploying up to 5 gigawatts of Nvidia's DSX-branded data center infrastructure. Orion, what's the play?
It's Nvidia pushing from selling picks and shovels into shaping the whole mine. 5 gigawatts is enormous, approaching utility-scale power planning. Pairing Nvidia's AI factory architecture with an operator like IREN speeds deployment, standardizes stacks, and locks in demand for NVIDIA platforms across the build-out.
5 gigawatts sounds abstract. What does it imply operationally?
It implies long lead procurement, power contracts, grid interconnects, cooling, land, and construction pipelines. It also implies customers that want dedicated AI factories, not just cloud rentals. Think sovereign AI, mega enterprises, and model labs. The industry's bottleneck is increasingly electrons and permits, not just chips.
Does this change competitive dynamics with cloud providers?
It nudges the market toward hyperscaler-like capacity outside the hyperscalers. That can pressure cloud pricing and availability and give large buyers more leverage. Also, Nvidia gets to define reference architectures end-to-end, which makes switching costs feel less like a speed bump and more like a wall.
Bloomberg reported on May 7th that Anthropic restricted the initial release of its new model, Mythos, citing substantial security risks, creating a capacity squeeze for customers and governments. What's going on?
The headline is, Safety Gating Can Look Like Scarcity. Anthropic appears to be limiting who gets access and how much, while they harden safeguards and scale capacity. That protects against misuse, but it also means buyers who plan deployments now face delays, or they shop elsewhere.
Is this a safety win or a competitive stumble?
It's both. If the risks are real, slowing down is responsible. But in a market where teams are racing to productionize, limited rollout can hand momentum to rivals with available capacity. The deeper point, frontier models now have launch constraints similar to hardware: yield, supply, and safety gates.
How should an enterprise interpret security risks in this context?
It could mean higher jailbreak ability, better phishing and malware assistance, or sensitive data extraction issues, anything that raises abuse likelihood. Enterprises should ask for clear deployment modes, logging, and policy controls. And they should plan for multi-provider setups, because single vendor dependence now includes model availability risk.
Let's hit a few fast movers. Euronews on May 8th says Paris prosecutors escalated a criminal probe involving Elon Musk and X over sexually explicit deepfakes tied to Grok. Meanwhile, the New York Times on May 8th describes Meta's internal AI transformation weeks alongside layoffs. How do these connect?
They're both AI externalities, becoming real governance problems. For X, deepfakes are now a law enforcement and securities-adjacent headache. For Meta, internal AI adoption is colliding with workforce redesign. The through line, deploying AI isn't just a model choice, it's policy, operations, and people management.
CNBC on May 8th also noted investors rotating some AI chip enthusiasm from Nvidia toward Intel, AMD, and Micron. Is that a real shift or just trading noise?
Some of it is positioning, but the thesis is coherent. Once GPU clusters are built, demand rises for surrounding infrastructure, CPU orchestration, memory bandwidth, storage, and networking. So the AI tax spreads across the supply chain. Nvidia still matters. The pie just gets more slices.
Crunchbase News on May 7th says FaceShift raised $17 million Series A for AI agents in accounts receivable. Orion, what is FaceShift in plain English?
It automates the get paid workflow, chasing invoices, resolving billing issues, and updating systems, tasks that usually live in email threads and spreadsheets. Agentic automation here can shorten days sales outstanding. Dry topic, big impact, like flossing, but for cash flow.
Two policy and adoption notes. Bloomberg Law on May 8th warned AI in employer health plans raises ERISA fiduciary duties around bias, transparency, and privacy. And Newsgram via IANS on May 8th says India AI and ICMR signed an MOU for responsible healthcare AI. Plus, Invez on May 8th cites HSBC naming Kingdee and Yonyu as China software winners. What should we watch?
Health is converging on accountability. If an algorithm influences coverage or care, someone has to prove it's fair and explainable. India's MOU suggests more standards and shared infrastructure to make that feasible at scale. And on enterprise software, the bet is that AI boosts ERP demand rather than replaces it, because process still matters.
That's XPulse AI Morning Mix from XPulse for Saturday, May 9th, 2026. Share it with someone who'd find it useful. See you next time.